My fiancée told her friends I was so pathetic she had to be drunk to sleep with me. I called off the wedding, took back my car, and now I'm thriving while she's falling apart. My name is David. I am 34 and I work as a civil engineer in Manchester. My days are structured and predictable. I manage infrastructure projects for the council, mostly road rehabilitation and drainage systems. It is stable work with early mornings, spreadsheets, site visits, and very little drama. I bought a modest semi-detached house 3 years ago, and I live a fairly routine life. My fiancée, Chloe, is 32. We have been together for 4 years and engaged for 9 months. She works as an estate agent for a regional property firm and spends most of her time doing viewings, chasing listings, and networking with clients. We were living together in my house and had started planning a wedding for late summer. The car she drives is registered in my name because I financed it before we got engaged. That detail matters later. Up until recently, I would have described our relationship as intense, but functional. Chloe has a sharp personality. She is quick-witted, social, and very comfortable being the loudest person in any room. I am more reserved. I assumed that difference balanced us out. What I did not realize was how she was describing me when I was not in the room. 2 months ago, we hosted drinks at our place for a few of her friends from work. I was in the kitchen cleaning up empty glasses while they were in the garden. The back door was open. I was not eavesdropping. I could just hear them clearly. One of her friends asked something about wedding nerves. Chloe laughed in a way I had heard before when she was being cruel. Then she said she did not even find me attractive unless she had a few drinks in her. She said I was so pathetic sometimes that she needed to be tipsy to sleep with me. They all laughed. There was more. She made a joke about how at least I was useful for paying the mortgage. I did not confront her in that moment. I finished washing the glasses. I walked into the garden. I sat down next to her. I acted normal. But something shifted permanently in my head that night. I did not sleep much that night. Not because I was emotional, but because I was thinking through logistics. I own the house. The mortgage is solely in my name. The car she drives is financed and registered under me. The wedding deposits had mostly been paid from my account. I needed to be sure that if this went where I suspected it might, I could act cleanly and legally. The next morning, I decided not to let it sit. She was in the kitchen in one of my hoodies, making coffee like nothing had happened. I asked her directly why she told her friends she had to be drunk to sleep with me. She did not deny it. She laughed first. Then she said I was taking it too literally. Then she said it was just girl talk. When I did not laugh with her, her tone shifted. She said if I were more confident, I would not care. She said maybe if I were less dull, she would not need wine to make things interesting. That was not banter. That was layered contempt. I asked her one more time if she understood why that was unacceptable. She said I was being dramatic and that I should focus on the fact she was still here planning a wedding with me. Still here. That wording settled it. I told her the wedding was off. Not postponed. Off. I said I would not marry someone who publicly disrespects me and then dismisses it as a personality flaw on my end. She thought I was bluffing. She told me to stop sulking. I did not raise my voice. I told her she needed to pack a bag and call one of her friends. I said she could collect the rest of her things over the weekend when I was home, but she was not staying in my house after speaking about me like that. That is when she escalated. She accused me of trying to control her. She said I would regret throwing away 4 years over a joke. I told her calmly that I was not throwing anything away. I was responding to information. Within 40 minutes, she had called her friend Megan. I helped carry her suitcase to the car. I did not argue. I did not negotiate. When she left, the house felt quiet in a way it had not in years. Not empty, just clear. The first practical step I took after she left was administrative, not emotional. By noon, I had emailed the venue to cancel the wedding booking. We were still within the partial refund window, so I recovered about 60% of the deposit. The photographer kept the retainer. That was fine. I consider it a fee for early clarity. Chloe started messaging me around midday. At first it was disbelief. Then irritation. She said I was humiliating her by telling vendors it was canceled. I replied once and kept it short. I said I would not move forward with a marriage where I was openly disrespected. I did not debate tone or intent. I did not argue semantics. By late afternoon, her messages shifted again. She said I had overreacted and that couples say worse things all the time. She said if I embarrassed her in front of her friends by admitting what she said, she would make sure people knew how insecure I was. That confirmed I had made the right call. On Saturday, she came to collect the rest of her things. I made sure I was present the entire time, not to intimidate her, but to prevent any later claim that I had withheld belongings. She packed mostly clothes, cosmetics, and a few decorative items she had purchased herself. I did not contest anything minor. It was not worth friction. Then we got to the car. The Audi was parked on the drive. I handed her the spare key to gather her things from inside. Then I told her clearly that the car would be staying. She looked at me like I had insulted her. I reminded her that the finance agreement, insurance, and registration were entirely under my name. I had allowed her to use it because we were building a life together. That context no longer applied. She said I could not just take it back because she needed it for work viewings. I told her she could arrange her own vehicle the same way she would have if we had never met. She accused me of being petty. I told her this was not pettiness. It was asset separation. She left in a taxi that afternoon. For the first time since we got engaged, I felt something close to relief rather than pressure. The following week was quieter than I expected. I assumed there would be dramatic attempts to reverse the situation. Instead, Chloe focused on optics. She posted vague quotes on social media about men being intimidated by strong women. She changed her profile picture to one from a work event where she looked polished and unbothered. Mutual acquaintances started reaching out. Not aggressively, just curious. I kept my explanation consistent and simple. She told her friends she had to be drunk to sleep with me. I ended the engagement. No embellishment. Interestingly, the reaction was not what she expected. 2 of her friends messaged me privately to say they were surprised she went that far. One admitted Chloe often mocked me when I was not around, but assumed I knew and did not mind. That part was useful. It confirmed a pattern rather than a one-off. Meanwhile, I adjusted quickly. Without her scheduled, dictating evenings, I went back to the gym regularly. I started staying later at site when projects required it, instead of rushing home to keep her entertained. I refinanced the Audi to reduce the monthly payment and considered selling it outright since I did not need 2 vehicles. Chloe, however, began to experience practical consequences. Estate agency relies heavily on mobility. Within 10 days, she was messaging about borrowing the car temporarily. I declined. I kept it factual. Insurance liability and financial exposure were not things I was willing to revisit. Her tone changed again. Less sharp. More frustrated. She said she was staying with Megan, but that it was cramped. She said taxis were eating into her commission. She said I was sabotaging her career over a joke. I did not respond to that message. What struck me most was that she never once apologized without qualification. There was no statement of understanding. Only negotiation framed around her inconvenience. That told me everything I needed to know about what marriage would have looked like. By the 3rd week, the contact became repetitive. Every few days, Chloe would find a new angle. One day it was practical. She needed documents that were apparently in a drawer. I checked. They were not. Another day it was emotional. She said 4 years deserved more than a cold administrative shutdown. Then it shifted to strategic. She suggested we attend couples counseling before making permanent decisions. I evaluated each message the same way I would review a contract variation at work. What is being requested? What is the exposure? What precedent does this set? What stood out was that none of her messages addressed the original issue in a direct way. She never said I was wrong to speak about you that way. She said you misinterpreted it. She said you were too sensitive. She said you escalated. It became clear that continued access to me was simply a negotiation tool for her. One evening she called 6 times in a row. I did not answer. Then she sent a voice note accusing me of punishing her. She said I was enjoying watching her struggle without the car and without the house. That was projection. I replied once. I said this is not punishment. This is consequence. I wish you well, but I am not reconsidering. She responded within 30 seconds with a paragraph about how no other woman would tolerate my insecurity. That line was familiar. It was the same tone she used in the garden. That was the moment I decided clarity required distance. I blocked her number. I blocked her on social media. I emailed her once to confirm that any remaining communication regarding shared administrative matters could go through email only and would be limited to essential issues. Then I archived the thread. The quiet that followed was different from the first week. It was cleaner. There was no anticipation of the next attempt. No waiting for the phone to light up. For the first time since calling off the wedding, I felt fully out of the situation rather than managing it. The month after I blocked her ended up being unexpectedly productive. At work, I had been leading a drainage redesign project that had stalled for almost a year due to budgeting disputes. With fewer distractions in my personal life, I pushed harder on it. I stayed late reviewing cost breakdowns, met directly with the procurement team, and restructured part of the proposal to reduce long-term maintenance expenses. It was approved. That approval put me in front of senior management in a way I had not been before. Within 6 weeks, I was offered a promotion to senior project lead with a noticeable salary increase and performance bonus tied to delivery milestones. For the first time in a while, I felt momentum. Word of that traveled faster than I expected. Manchester is not enormous socially, especially in overlapping professional circles. Chloe heard about it. The first email from her after the block was different in tone. No sarcasm. No eye-rolling subtext. She said she had made a mistake. She said she was under pressure when she made those comments and that it was stupid and immature. She said she did not mean them the way they sounded. I did not respond. 2 days later, there was another message. Longer. She said she missed me. She said she had been angry because she felt insecure about earning commission while I had stable income. She admitted she sometimes put me down in front of her friends to feel superior. That was the closest thing to honesty I had heard. Then came the request. She asked if we could meet and talk. She said she would apologize properly. She said she would give up drinking if that was what it took. She said she would do anything to fix it. The shift was stark. From dismissing me as sensitive to offering concessions. I read it carefully and then closed the email. Success did not change what she had revealed about how she viewed me. It only changed her incentives. I did not agree to meet her. Instead, I replied once by email to close the loop. I said I appreciated the apology, but I was not interested in resuming the relationship. I kept it neutral. No insults. No moral lecture. Just final. She responded within an hour. This time there was no performance. She said she had panicked when I blocked her. She said she assumed I would cool off and come back. She admitted she told her friends I would never actually leave because I was too stable and predictable to disrupt my own life. That detail mattered more than the original insult. She had not just disrespected me. She had calculated that I would tolerate it indefinitely. Over the next week, the emails became more urgent. She said her short-term rental was expensive and unstable. She said work had slowed down and losing the car had made her less competitive for listings outside the city center. She said she was exhausted trying to rebuild everything at once. Then she asked directly if she could move back in temporarily while we worked things out. That was the first request that felt less about reconciliation and more about security. I replied once more. I said no. I said moving back in would blur boundaries and create false expectations. I said the decision to end the engagement was final and not a negotiation tactic. She tried a different approach. She said she would sign a tenancy agreement and pay rent. She said she would prove she respected me. That confirmed my earlier conclusion. The urgency was situational, not relational. I stopped replying after that. Through mutual contacts, I later heard she had started telling people she had sabotaged the best thing in her life, that she underestimated me, that she assumed I would never call her bluff. For my part, I was not angry anymore, just steady. The promotion went through officially at the end of the quarter. I celebrated quietly with a couple of colleagues. No dramatic reinvention, just forward movement. About 2 months after the breakup, I ran into her unexpectedly. It was a Thursday evening, and I had just left the gym. I stopped at a small supermarket near Deansgate to grab groceries. She was in the wine aisle. The irony did not escape me. She saw me before I saw her. When I turned the corner, she was already looking directly at me. Not defiant, not sharp, just tired. We stood there for a second in that awkward public silence people pretend does not exist. She approached first. No theatrics, no raised voice. She said she had been hoping to run into me because I was not answering emails anymore. That was intentional. She looked thinner. Not dramatically, just worn down. She told me work had dipped, and she was considering moving back in with her parents outside the city to cut costs. She said she had underestimated how much stability I provided. There it was again. Stability. Provision. Infrastructure. Not affection. Not partnership. She said she had been stupid. She said she got used to being admired socially and started seeing me as safe rather than valuable. She admitted she liked the reaction she got from belittling me in front of her friends because it made her feel superior. I let her finish. Then I told her calmly that I believed her apology was genuine this time. I also told her it did not change my decision. Respect is not something I negotiate for after it is withdrawn publicly. Once I know someone sees me as beneath them, I cannot unhear it. She asked if there was any scenario where we could start again slowly. I said no. I did not say it with anger. I said it like a fact. She nodded. For the first time since all of this started, she did not argue. She just said she wished she had understood consequences earlier. We parted in the cereal aisle. I went home, cooked dinner, and felt something settle for good. Not vindication, just completion. After that supermarket encounter, I expected some kind of emotional aftershock. There was none. What I noticed instead was how differently I carried myself in the weeks that followed. Not in a dramatic transformation sense. More in small, measurable ways. I started saying no to things I did not want to attend. I stopped over-explaining my decisions at work. I delegated more decisively on site. It was as if drawing a firm line in my personal life recalibrated my tolerance elsewhere. The project I had pushed through earlier moved into its execution phase. I was managing contractors, timelines, and budget reviews without the background noise of someone questioning my competence at home. The bonus structure kicked in once initial milestones were met, and financially, I was ahead of where I had projected I would be this year. Meanwhile, updates about Chloe filtered in indirectly. She did move back in with her parents outside Manchester. The commute to the city cut into her networking time. Commission dipped further. A mutual acquaintance mentioned she had tried to reframe the breakup publicly as a mutual decision at first, but people had already heard the fuller version. Apparently, the line about needing to be drunk had circulated. Reputation shifts quietly but decisively. Once enough people understand the pattern, you do not need to defend yourself. About 3 months post-breakup, she sent one final email. It was short. No bargaining. She said she had started therapy because she realized she equated dominance with security. She said she had treated me like a resource instead of a partner. She did not ask for anything. I did not respond, but I respected that message more than any previous one. I am not interested in revenge arcs or watching someone collapse. What happened to her was not something I orchestrated. It was simply the removal of a safety net she assumed would never move. And once it did, gravity handled the rest. It has been just over 6 months since I called off the wedding. The house feels like mine again in a way it did not before. Not because it is quieter, but because there is no underlying tension. I rearranged the spare room into a proper office instead of the half-storage compromise it used to be. I sold the Audi and replaced it with something more practical. The extra cash went straight into investments. Professionally, the promotion has settled into routine. The initial surge of responsibility is now just my normal workload. I manage a team of 5. I am stricter about timelines and clearer about expectations. No one seems confused about where they stand with me. Personally, I have dated casually but intentionally. I am transparent early about what I will not tolerate. Public disrespect is non-negotiable. Jokes that rely on diminishing me are not clever to me anymore. They are diagnostic. I do not think Chloe is a villain. She is intelligent and capable, but she confused stability with weakness and admiration with leverage. She believed that because I was measured and consistent, I would absorb anything to preserve structure. She was wrong. Calling off the wedding was not an emotional outburst. It was a structural correction. Marriage would have legally and financially intertwined me with someone who saw me as a safety net first and a partner second. That is not a foundation I am willing to build on. The most telling part is this. The moment she realized I was serious was not when I confronted her. It was when I acted. When the venue was canceled. When the car stayed. When the block was permanent. Clarity is quiet. It does not need theatrics. If anyone reading this is questioning whether a comment was just a joke, ask yourself one thing. Would they have said it if they believed you might walk away immediately? If the answer is no, you already know what you were dealing with. I did not lose a fiancé. I removed myself from a future that would have required me to accept being small in my own life.